One of the most useful skills that we're going to work on is factoring a trinomial. So trinomials are of the form, is factoring trinomials in quadratic form. Quadratic form is this: ax squared plus bx plus c, right? These are degree 2 equations. Their graphs look like a parabola, which looks like a big U, okay? And what we're going to do in order to factor these is we're going to need to pull this middle term apart, right? So that we'll have 4 terms and we can factor by grouping. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the factors of AC that add up to B. Then we're going to rewrite our middle term as the sum or difference of those 2 factors whose sum is B. And then we can factor by grouping. So I have my A in this case. I like to write it out as 1, B is 8, C is 12. I need to find the factors of AC that add up to B. Well, AC is 1 times 12, so that's just 12, and B is 8. So I need to find some factors of 12 that add up to 8. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little table of all the factors of 12. Now, you do not have to do all of these steps. You do not have to write down every single possible set of factors of 12, but I think it's really good practice. And you also need to remember that you could have 2 negatives that make a positive. So let's see. We want to find which of these sets of factors adds up to 8. Well, 1 times 2, 1 times 12, 12, 1 plus 12, the sum is 13, that's no good. But 2 and 6, 2 plus 6 equals 8, so those are going to be our factors. So I'm going to rewrite x squared plus 8x plus 12 as x squared. Let me make myself a little bit more room. I'm going to rewrite this as x squared plus 2x plus 6x. And the order doesn't matter, right? I could have done 6x plus 2x and I'd still get the same answer. Now I have 4 terms and now I can factor by grouping. The greatest common factor of x squared and 2x is x. The greatest common factor of 6x and 12 is 6. I collect my greatest common factors and my remaining binomial. See, here I have fully factored our trinomial. Let's work on this second example, but I'm going to go ahead and clear us a little bit more room. If you needed to see that, you can pause the video real quick. Sorry, I erased so quickly. Change of color. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 35. So in this case, A is 1, B is 2, and C is 35. Sorry, C is a negative 35. That's important. So I need to find the factors of AC, which is 1 times negative 35, that add up to B, which is 2. So 35 factors in negative 35, factors into a negative 1 times 35, a negative 5 times 7, a negative 7 times 5, and a negative 35 times negative 1. And if we take the sum of these, I get 34, 2, negative 2, and that's a positive 1, and negative 34. Well, I wanted my factors of negative 35 to add up to 2, so I'm going to use these 2 right here. So I've got negative 5 and 7. So I'm going to use that to pull this middle term apart, because negative 5 plus 7 is positive 2. So now I have x squared minus 5x plus 7x minus 35. And I can factor by grouping. The greatest common factor of x squared and 5x is x. The greatest common factor of 7x and negative 35 is 7. As we can see, both of my remaining binomials are the same. That's crucial. I collect my greatest common factors and my remaining binomial, and then I've fully factored this trinomial. It's important to note that you can check your answer by foiling this back out. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor a couple more trinomials. Remember, I'm trying to find the factors of AC that add up to B. We want to find the factors of AC that add up to B. So A in this case is 1, B in this case is 6A, C in this case is 16A squared. So this one's a little bit more complicated. We got more variables going on, but it's okay. We know how to do this. So AC in this case is just going to be 16A squared, and B is 6A. So I need to find some factors. It's negative 6A. You can't forget that negative. So I need to find some factors of negative 16A squared that add up to 6A. So I got to pull my A's apart, right, because it's got to add up to single A's. I could have A times negative 16A. I could have 4A times negative 4A. Well, that would equal 0, so that's not going to work. What about if I have 8A times negative 2A? If I have 8A times negative 2A, their product's negative 16A squared. Awesome. And if I take the sum, 8A plus a negative 2A gives me 6A. So I can pull apart this middle term and rewrite it using these two factors. So I have x squared plus 8ax minus 2ax minus 16a squared. We're going to factor by grouping. The greatest common factor of x squared and 8ax is just x. The greatest common factor of negative 2ax and negative 16a squared, remember with that leading negative, we've got to pull it out. So I have negative 2a, that leaves me x plus 8a. Both of these are the same. Awesome. We did everything right, so let's grab our greatest common factors and the remaining binomial. Now we're going to try this again. I'm going to show you how it works even if our leading coefficient isn't 1. So in this case, A is 12. Maybe I should switch colors. A is 12, B is negative 5, and C is negative 2. So AC in this case is 12 times negative 2, which gives me negative 24. So I need to find the factors of negative 24 that add up to negative 5. And you might already kind of be thinking in your head, okay, well, 24 is 2 times 12, or it's 4 times 6. It's also 3 times 8. And negative 8 times 3, if I add those together, would give me negative 5. Now, I saw what two factors I needed to add up to negative 5. If you don't, making a table is a great way for you to work through that. So now I can pull this middle term apart. I've got 12x squared minus 8x plus 3x minus 2. And remember, we're just pulling apart that middle term. If I combined like terms, I'd get back to my original polynomial. So I'm going to go ahead and factor by grouping. 12x squared minus 8x, the greatest common factor there is going to be 4x. That leaves me 3x minus 2. And the greatest common factor of 3x and negative 2, well, that's just going to be a 1. And I still have to pull out that factor, even if it's a 1. So I collect my greatest common factors. I write it next to my remaining binomial. And there I've fully factored our trinomial right here. So in some cases, we're going to need to first factor out the greatest common factor, and then we'll be able to factor accordingly. So remember, if I have a negative leading coefficient, we're going to definitely want to take out the negative. The greatest common factor of negative 3, 9, and negative 6, that's going to be a negative 3. So that gives me negative 3x squared minus 3x plus 2. And now I can go ahead and factor this trinomial. I want to know what are the factors of AC, which is 2, that add up to B, which is negative 3. Well, some factors of 2 to add up to a negative could be negative 1 times negative 2. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. So I can pull that middle term apart. Now I can go ahead and factor by grouping. The greatest common factor of x squared and negative 2x is x. The greatest common factor of negative x plus 2. Remember, we don't want a leading negative, so I'm going to pull out a negative 1. Both my remaining binomials are the same, so I can rewrite this as negative 3, take my greatest common factors, times x minus 2, my remaining binomial. Go ahead and switch colors. So I've got 8y cubed minus 12y squared plus 4y. The greatest common factor here is going to be 4y. That leaves me with 4y squared minus 3y plus 1. So I need to know the factors of AC, which in this case is 4, that add up to B, which is negative 3. Pull out a factor 4. This is a 2. See, I caught my mistake because I was like, wait, there aren't any factors of AC of 4 that add up to negative 3. This is actually 2. So I need some factors of 2 that add up to negative 3. Luckily, I already did that. I know it's going to be negative 1 times negative 2, because if I add them together, I get negative 3. So I have 4y, 2y squared minus 2y minus y plus 1, and then I can go ahead and factor by grouping. The greatest common factor of 2y squared and negative 2y is just going to be 2y. The greatest common factor of negative y plus 1, that's going to be a negative 1. I take my greatest common factor of everybody, collect my 2 greatest common factors I pulled out from our remaining trinomial, and multiply that by our remaining binomial. And there I've fully factored our trinomial.